Welcome to the channel. Today we're diving into a shadowy world. The drug trafficking networks centered in Venezuela, the powerful criminal organizations behind them, and how U.S. military operations are increasingly intervening at sea and in the region. We'll look at two major players. One, a transnational gang, the other a state-linked cartel embedded in the government and military. We'll examine their leaders, how they operate, how the U.S. is targeting them, and ask whether the strikes are really making a dent. Let's go. Who are the organizations? First up, the gang known as Tren de Aragua, TDA. Founded inside the prison system in the Venezuelan state of Aragua, it became a mega-band over time. It is led by Hector Rustenford Guerrero Flores, alias Niño Guerrero. This group has expanded beyond extortion inside Venezuela to allegedly engage in human trafficking, migrant smuggling, cross-border operations in Latin America, and drug trafficking. Second, the so-called Cartel de los Soles, Cartel of the Suns. This is less a classic hierarchical cartel and more a network of corrupt military and state actors in Venezuela, which U.S. authorities say is led by Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro Moros and senior figures such as Diosdado Cabello Rondon, though this remains controversial. The U.S. Treasury describes Cartel de los Soles as an organization that provides material support to Tren de Aragua and others. So, in short, a gang, Tren de Aragua, and a state-linked cartel network, Cartel de los Soles. Both are implicated in the Venezuelan drug trafficking ecosystem. Key people and leadership. Let's name some of the key leaders. For Tren de Aragua, Hector Niño Guerrero. Guerrero Flores, top figure, prison pran, underworld boss, in the Tocaron prison, later escapee. Giovanni Vicente Mosquera Serrano, aka Giovanni. Indicted by U.S. authorities, part of the gang's leadership for narcotics trafficking, extortion, and financial management. For Cartel de los Soles, Nicolas Maduro Moros. According to U.S. indictments and Treasury sanctions, he is alleged to be the leader of the cartel. Diosdado Cabello Rondon, frequently named in accusations as a top figure in the network. It's important to note, while the U.S. designates Cartel de los Soles as a narco-trafficking organization, many independent analysts argue that the structure is more diffuse than portrayed. Now, how does the drug business work for these groups? In Venezuela, the criminal environment has allowed gangs and corrupted officials to exploit weak borders, depleted state capacity, and mass migration for trafficking purposes. According to reports, Tren de Aragua has taken advantage of the Venezuelan migrant outflow to expand its network across Latin America. Meanwhile, the Cartel de los Soles is alleged to facilitate the transit of cocaine from Colombia through Venezuela's territory, using corrupt military and law enforcement officials, shipping routes through the Caribbean, and onward to the U.S. and Europe. In the Caribbean sea lanes, the U.S. military has reported intercepting small craft off the Venezuelan coast, carrying suspected drug loads or drug traffickers affiliated with Tren de Aragua. For example, a strike in September 2025 off the Venezuelan coast reportedly killed 11 persons on a vessel accused of being tied to Tren de Aragua. The business model: produce or procure cocaine, often from Colombia, move it via Venezuela, or use Venezuela's weak maritime border control into the Caribbean or Atlantic, then into U.S. markets. Meanwhile, revenue is laundered via real estate, commodity trades, possibly oil and mining. The state-linked network of Cartel de los Soles enables institutional protection and logistical support, U.S. military, and government response. Let's switch to what the U.S. is doing. The U.S. has ramped up sanctions and designations. Tren de Aragua was designated by the U.S. State Department as a foreign terrorist organization, FTO. Cartel de los Soles was sanctioned by the U.S. Treasury for materially supporting both Tren de Aragua and the Mexican Sinaloa cartel. The U.S. offered rewards for Tren de Aragua top leader Niño Guerrero up to $5 million. For Mosquera Serrano, $3 million. More controversially, the U.S. military has carried out strikes on vessels off the Venezuelan coast suspected of drug trafficking. For example, the small boat strike in September 2025. Why military? The U.S. defines the operations as part of counter-narcotics, but also asserting the presence of a non-international armed conflict with cartels. The goal: disrupt the supply routes, capture or kill traffickers, weaken the operational capacity of gangs and state-linked networks, raise the cost of illicit operations. But what impact are these operations having, and what challenges remain? By targeting leadership and assets, sanctions, arrests, the U.S. is increasing pressure on the gangs and state-linked networks. Publicizing strikes and rewards raises political cost for traffickers and corrupt officials. Disrupting maritime shipments may force traffickers to shift routes, making them more vulnerable. Many analysts caution that the so-called Cartel de los Soles is not a monolithic, top-down cartel, but rather a loose network of corrupt officials and traffickers. So, dismantling it is hard. Intelligence and evidence. In the September strike, some question whether there was concrete proof of drug cargo, raising concerns about legality and collateral damage. Traffickers are adaptive. Shift routes, Pacific versus Caribbean. Use smaller craft. Use migrant networks. Exploit migration flows. Sovereignty and escalation. U.S. military strikes near Venezuela raise diplomatic risk and questions of intervention. Bottom line: the pressure is real, but the system is resilient. Unless corruption is addressed, and unless local capacity is strengthened, traffickers can keep evolving. Here are some things to watch going forward. Will U.S. operations off the Venezuelan coast increase in scale? And will there be more interdictions of drug vessels linked to Tren de Aragua or other networks? Will any of the top leaders, Niño Guerrero, Mosquera Serrano, or senior officials alleged in Cartel de los Soles be captured or indicted with strong evidence publicly shown? Will the traffickers shift more toward Pacific/Atlantic routes, bypassing Caribbean interdiction? Will regional actors, Colombia, Caribbean states, Venezuela, cooperate more with U.S. or independently to crack the networks? Will the legal status of armed conflict with cartels hold up? And what precedent does that set for coast interdictions, U.S. military presence, sovereignty issues? To wrap up, the criminal networks tied to Venezuela, particularly the Tren de Aragua gang and the state-linked Cartel de los Soles, are under increasing pressure from U.S. sanctions, military operations, and law enforcement efforts. But the war against illicit drug trafficking is far from over, and the shifting routes, adaptive tactics, and deeply entrenched corruption mean that the fight will be long and complex. If you found this breakdown useful, hit the like button, subscribe for more deep dives on transnational crime and geopolitics, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next upload. Leave a comment below. Do you think the U.S. military approach is effective, or are there better strategies? Thanks for watching. Until next time.